Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
The theme for season 4 is Reading Rainbow, so that is queer historical fiction from around the globe, and today we're headed to Ireland.
We are reading The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue.
Yes. And actually, some things I'm working on this week tie in because as I don't even know if I mentioned this on the pod. I mean, you definitely know, but me and my sister are taking my mom to Ireland. She had a big, exciting 60th birthday in September, and we surprised her and told her we were taking her. But now it is almost exactly a month out. When this episode comes out, we'll probably either be there, has been there, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I have actually had Santiago helping me with the itinerary because I've had no time with work. So I started it and he just kind of cleaned it up. So my mom and sister are going to be getting a copy of that this week once I look it over, just to make sure everyone's aligned before I start booking things.
That is so exciting. I am so sorry that in Ireland there is no Johnny Tremaine walking tour.
No, but there is a queer book walking tour, according to my mom.
So you can get more material if it's too late to put in the pod season. It could go in later seasons because, as we've said, we're read diversely all year round, not just during pod season 4.
If you go back to Boston and do the Johnny Tremaine walking trail, and then we both do a walking trail episode, bonus episode.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be like the one where we just talked at each other and made people listen to it.
Isn't that what we do every week?
Well, yes, exactly.
But I am so excited to hear, maybe in episode 12 of this season or something, you can tell us what you did.
At some point, you'll get a recap of my Ireland trip.
That is very
You'll know
exciting.
what's happening when our weekend pod Instagram post is a picture from Ireland.
Yeah, so that's more incentive to follow our pod Instagram.
Exactly.
Well, I'm also excited about something that's happening in the near future, which is the NCAA Gymnastics Championships are coming up.
You mean what one of my what one of my solid core instructors is attending now that I have my solid core membership?
In Fort Worth?
Yes.
Okay, I was supposed to go in 2020. So I did not go.
Devastating.
Because they were also in Fort Worth then. They're in Fort Worth every year for some reason. Because there's no gymnastics colleges in Texas.
That might be why.
Neutral site, I guess. But I don't know, why specifically the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth? Anyway. But it's very exciting for all of us, especially you, because Leanne Wong will be there.
My queen!
Yes, your queen, unfortunately from Florida.
Every tongue who rises against her shall fall. Is she from Florida? Or did she go to UF?
She's from either the Midwest or the Northeast. I can't remember right now. The gym that she went to is in Pennsylvania, but I don't think she's from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because, these gymnasts are crazy.
So am I still going to get points in the fantasy league? Did you find that out?
No one will answer me. I need to do research. Because we do gymnastics fantasy league, if you do a football fantasy league, you can just go on ESPN and there are hundreds of thousands of other people doing it. Because we do gymnastics,
there's no one.
The website that we do it on is coded by someone that I follow on Twitter. So I just DM them when I have a question. So I need to do that in this case because I tried to crowdsource my answer and I did not get it.
But I'm solidly in third place in the league. And Grace and Ashley are having a Grace and Ashley themed party where everyone has to come up dressed as a Grace or an Ashley.
Yes.
And my original thought was State of Grace by Taylor Swift because I thought that was fun. It was wordplay.
Of course.
However, now I'm going to go as Grace McCallum, gymnast from insert university here.
Utah.
Who has gotten me many 10s this season. I owe her credit.
Grace McCallum gets a lot of 10s. She's a bars girl.
She's great. She's gotten 10s on other stuff, though.
Oh, yeah, but that's her main gig.
Yes. But, yeah, so in honor of the gymnastics championships, 4 on the floor.
4 on the floor. Well, because they can't call it the Final Four, and so they keep coming up with things to make work. For example, the championships take place in April, and one of the announcers really has tried to make April Anarchy a thing.
Oh, I hate it.
No, March Madness. It does not work. I'm it's not the principle of it. But I actually think 4 on the floor is really cute.
I like that one.
Yeah. It used to be the top 6 teams, and they called it Super 6. But I do not like Super 6.
That's fine, but it's not as good.
Well, also, it's just too many teams. So, I don't even want them to be 6. I don't want there to be 6 of them. I would like there to be 4.
Yeah.
So, what about you? What are you reading?
Well, I'm actually not here to talk about what I'm reading. I'm here to talk about what my mom is reading. My mom has tried to do the Storygraph reading challenge this season. And she
Tough because we have not given her good books to work with so far.
And she is not happy with us. So she sent me a picture when she went to the library of Fellow Travelers and Gwen and Art. And I told her, I said, okay, Gwen and Art is YA, like, be aware. And I told her up front, I said, we just recorded our Fellow Travelers episode. I hated the book, but I've heard the show was really good. She did not like Fellow Travelers, and she DNF'd Gwen and Art. She's like, I couldn't get through that one. It was awful.
Yeah. Well, even so, like, we are the first kind of generation that had YA in the iteration that it is in now.
Yeah.
Like, YA was much more sparse when your mom was in the age to be reading it.
Yeah. And, like, even when we were kids, she read a lot. Like, she read Twilight, she read a Harry Potter, but those are not, like, Gwen and Art.
No. Very
So,
different.
I don't blame her for the DNF there. And Fellow Traveler, she's like, I'm just going to watch the show instead. And then her friend was like, oh my God, I love the show. I want to read the book. And I was like, no!
The show is
Stop!
better!
But I did tell her because she's like, I don't know if I'm going to continue your challenge. And I'm like, okay, fair. I'm like, I'll tell you the ones you should read. So The Pull of the Stars was the next one I told her to read.
We'll get into that a little bit more because I'm going to tell my story about what I'm reading right now because there is a bit of a story.
Yes.
It will be a boring story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. And then we'll get into the book for this week.
Yes. Well, I'm not trying to get in the book. Just giving you an update on what my mom is currently reading. And it is this book.
All right. Well, so I am currently reading the book Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. It was big last year. It was on the short list for the Booker. It did not win the Booker. I actually don't know.
Oh, the Booker, famously won by the Luminaries?
Exactly. So your enemy, the Booker. I think it was called the Man Booker then. I think they just call it the Booker now.
We need an intern to go back and listen to every episode and figure out how many enemies and how many famed individuals we have.
Yeah. But the point of my story actually is kind of unrelated to whatever book I'm reading because I've had Creation Lake on hold for an extremely long time. And in fact, it's still on hold. You might say, Grace, if you're currently reading it, how do you have it still on hold? Did you put it on hold twice? No.
Oh.
Don't tell people I do that, Erin. Only ever in an emergency. Because if you put a hold on a book on Libby, sometimes you will magically get what they call a skip the line copy.
What?
Yes. So I had 4 weeks left on my hold. I get a notification. I open it up. It says, here's a copy of Creation Lake. You can skip the line. However, you can only have it for 2 weeks. However, we're not getting rid of your hold, so you're still in line if you don't finish it in time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I have like 40 pages left. I'm going to read them when we're done recording.
Okay, cool.
But the book is due at like 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Oh, you got this.
So I was cutting it down to the wire. I was like, I'm going to have to stop this book with like a little bit left and return to it when my hold comes in. But no, I have skipped the line.
Wow, I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I guess they're like, you're such a valued reader in our community.
I don't know if it's random. I don't know if the app does it. I don't know if they do it from the library. I don't know if they have to turn on the skip the line function. I don't know if it's only for books that are really popular because I've been waiting for this book for months now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've been using Libby for years and I have 3 different library cards and this is the first time that's ever happened to me. So I was just very intrigued by the discovery of the skip the line loan.
That is fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So, I saw you put in parentheses on skip the line, and I thought you meant, and like my brain keeps glitching when I read those 4 words right now, and I thought it was like on the line to be skipped. Like I thought it was like
a DNF.
I thought you were like skating on thin ice for DNFing. Oh, okay.
I'm almost done. So it's pretty good.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was just so enthused by that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
All
They're
right.
like, wow, a valued, not even customer because you don't pay for anything.
No.
A valued reader.
A valued patron of the
a
library.
valued patron.
All right. However, I read a physical copy of The Pull of the Stars because I did already own it. So should we dive in?
Let's dive in. You're on synopsis this week. I've done the past 2.
All right. In an Ireland doubly ravaged by war and disease, Nurse Julia Power works at an understaffed hospital in the city center where expectant mothers who have come down with the terrible new flu are quarantined together. Into Julia's regimented world step 2 outsiders, Dr. Kathleen Lynn, a rumored rebel on the run from the police, and a young volunteer helper, Bridie Sweeney. In the darkness and intensity of this tiny ward over 3 days, these women change each other's lives in unexpected ways. They lose patience to this baffling pandemic, but they also shepherd new life into a fearful world. With tireless tenderness and humanity, carers and mothers alike somehow do their impossible work.
So I know that they did not live even in the same continent, but imagine if she brought Violetta, who was born in the pandemic, into the world in her maternity world.
That would be crazy.
I love when it's not super often we read pod books of the same time period, I would say.
No,
Except for
actually,
World War II stuff because there's just an oversaturated market.
Yeah, don't get me started.
But this is one.
Yeah.
I guess for at least part of Violetta.
Yeah. I mean, that one, it's so interesting because Violetta, yeah, she was born in the flu pandemic. I think she might have been actually born in 1918.
I think so.
Because we know the year, because she lived to be 100 exactly,
Yeah.
I think. And that book takes place over her entire life. And this book takes place over 3 days.
Yeah, so it's actually, I might be making some parallels during this.
Okay.
Just because of like that, because I think both have such unique durations and both durations work exceptionally well.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Emma Donoghue.
Your queen.
Yes. I'm going to say straight up, this is, I think, actually the first Emma Donoghue book we've read for the pod.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about when I read The Wonder.
Okay. Emma Donoghue, so I'll say up front, she is my favorite author.
Mm-hmm.
So once we talk about like what we've read for or seen from her before, then I'll get into that a little bit more. But I picked this book on purpose because it's the perfect opportunity for me to do so. Yeah. I mean, it's the queer season. Anyway, Emma Donoghue was born in Dublin in 1969. She's one of 8 children. And actually, she was named Emma for the Jane Austen novel Emma, which I did not know. She grew up going to convent school and she went to college in Dublin after that. And then she left to get her PhD at Cambridge, which is where she met her wife, Chris. She emigrated to Canada with Chris, who is a native Canadian. And now they live there to this day with their 2 children. Basically, ever since she graduated from college or got her PhD, she's been making a living from writing. And she's written across a variety of genres, but she tends towards historical fiction. She has a few children's books. She has a nonfiction book. Some of her earlier works were contemporary, but especially nowadays, she's really leaned into the historical fiction.
Which is great for you.
Absolutely. Except for her most famous novel, which is Room. So if you've been sitting here thinking, how do I know that name? It's probably because of Room, which came out in 2010. And then in 2015, Room was adapted into a film starring Brie Larson, famously. And Emma Donoghue wrote the screenplay, so she was nominated for the Oscar for that. She did not win. She lost to The Big Short, which I think also was a pretty good adaptation, so I can't really be mad about it. But, of course, I would have wanted Emma to win. Yes. But she is still actively writing. She had a new book out as recently as March of this year, 2025. Do you remember what
you rated it?
4.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So, still good. Sorry, I've gone all out of order reading my little paragraph here. I should have been following it more closely.
I think you're up to about Pull of the Stars.
Yes. So Pull of the Stars is one of her more recent books. It came out in 2020. And actually, she had submitted the final draft of this book to her publishers in March of 2020.
Which, crazy timing.
Yeah. So not planned at all to put out a book about a pandemic into a pandemic. But once her publishers realized that there was a real pandemic, they rushed this through to print and to selling in 4 months.
Wow.
So they were like, they put the pedal to the metal on this one to get it to the hands of people. And I remember reading this in quarantine in my parents' house.
Yeah.
Like I pre-ordered it and I had Barnes & Noble mail it to me. So it definitely was very timely.
Yes.
And then I just included this little section from her FAQ on her website, because given that the theme of our season is reading rainbow, I thought it was an interesting ad. One of her FAQ questions is, how do you feel about the label lesbian writer? Wouldn't you rather just be known as a writer? And her response is, I get asked this question all the time, and I really appreciate the fact that so many readers who like my work want to defend me from what they see as limiting labels. But on principle, I'm not going to object to lesbian writer if I don't object to Irish writer or woman writer, since these are all equally descriptive of me and where I'm from. And the labels commit me to nothing, of course. My books aren't and don't all have to be about Ireland or women or lesbians. And since publishing Room, I'm mostly known as the locked up children writer instead.
Incredible. I actually did not know she was lesbian. I didn't really know much about her, though.
Yeah. Well, the reason that I picked this book is, obviously, I am very familiar with Emma Donoghue's oeuvre. There are only, I think, 3 of her books that I haven't read, and it's one of my goals for this year to read all of them, so I will have completed the set. But I will say, like, her books are, there's a bunch of them that are contemporary and a bunch that are historical. And then separately from that, there's a bunch that are queer and a bunch that are not queer.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned The Wonder. The Wonder is not a queer book.
No.
So I would say that approximately a quarter of her books are queer historical fiction.
Interesting.
So I plucked this one from the list for us to read for the season.
Well, lovely. I forget, did you have any specific reason why this one? I think it was just country, wasn't it?
I was going to say the other one that I had debated was Learned by Heart, which is about Anne Lister. If anyone has seen the show Gentleman Jack, as I and data scientist Ashley have, it's about her.
Gotcha.
But that one was set in England. This one was set in Ireland. I think we have some other stuff going on later in the season, perhaps in England. So we just thought, let's pick the Irish
that's
one.
what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Other stuff I've read by her, I've read The Wonder, which I did really enjoy.
Yes.
And I have a copy of The Room sitting on my shelf. As I mentioned last week, now that we are going to be 1/3 of the way done.
You have some break time in
I
your
have
reading.
some break time in my reading. So I will be recovering with Room.
Yes. And I will also add The Wonder has also been adapted to film.
Oh, has it?
Yeah. I don't think it was a Netflix original, but it was distributed on Netflix. The main character is played by Florence Pugh.
Oh.
It was just okay.
Yeah.
And actually, I was going to mention this off air, but while we're here, I might as well bring it up. You just mentioned an episode or two ago, the memoir H is for Hawk.
Yes.
Emma Donoghue is doing the script to adapt that to film.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's her current project. I think it's still in like pretty early production.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, I'll have to maybe like the movie better.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that.
So, disclaimer, I'm not going to ask you what else you read by her because we know all but 3 books.
Almost everything.
Disclaimer, our judgments come based on the book and characters within the book rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on. Spoilers ahead.
Yes. This book, it puts you through the ringer.
Yes. This book, can I give an immediate spoiler?
Please do.
It's my first 5 of the season.
Yeah, we're finally done with the bad books.
Oh my God. It's like reading, like getting a breath of fresh air reading this book. Which is why I'm going to start with the only 2 complaints I had about this book, and I understand they are both very subjective.
Yes.
Lack of quotation marks. I understand it's a stylistic decision. I do not like it.
Yes. Let's talk about it. So, there are no quotation marks.
Yeah.
For those of you perhaps who have read, I think Sally Rooney doesn't do quotation marks.
Yeah, I didn't like it with Sally Rooney either.
Yeah. Talk more about what you feel about how it doesn't work.
I just like the segmentation. I'm also like, my background is in editing and grammar. So like in my own writing and that sort of stuff. Oh, it's sunset now and all of our lights just changed colors because we are Google Home.
Ooh.
I always tend towards more like firm grammar rather than like stylistic decisions. So that just comes from, you know, my own background and my own writing and all of that. I think it just makes for a more approachable and accessible reading experience.
I think so too. So the first time I read this book, I read it like right when it came out, like I said, and then I hadn't read it since, and then I read it again for the pod. The first time I recall not liking it at the beginning, but then as you get into it, like it ceases to be like you don't notice it as you keep reading, or at least I did.
I fell into it more and I got used to it.
Yes. But I don't think I really understood. I was like, okay, she just decided to do this for this book for whatever reason. None of her other books are like that.
Yeah.
Except maybe Room is at times, but that's definitely more of a consequence of like being from the point of view of a child.
Yeah.
I don't even think necessarily anyway. But this time around, I actually did enjoy it more. Maybe not enjoy is the right word. I understood why she did it, and I thought that it was the right choice.
Okay.
Because what you're witnessing are these 3 back-to-back shifts at the hospital from Nurse Power.
Yeah.
They're all really long. They're all really intense. She has very little help. Like, even when she goes home, you see her, like, she goes home, falls into bed, eats something, goes back to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, her whole existence is subsumed by the flu and the hospital. And I felt like that you're almost like having an out-of-body experience with her, and the non-quotation marks kind of extends that feeling, that kind of uncanny feeling of like you just have to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it's all runs into one long blur.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think that's the goal of the book, and it keeps you very cramped. You're in the one room for
3
most of the
days.
book. Yeah. And I think that feeling comes across very strongly.
Yeah, I agree. Again, not a decision I would make. I understand the way you're describing it. You know, just not for me. I don't really. I do read books without quotation marks. It's never a make or break for me, but it always like pulls me out a little bit.
Yeah, it takes a minute to get used to. Or like when you read a book that's written and there's a character has an accent that's written phonetically.
Yeah.
Or when you listen to The Four Winds on audio and they all have really thick Italian accents.
Exactly.
You just have to get used to it.
Exactly.
All right.
The other thing, my other complaint about this book, again, incredibly subjective. I have probably mentioned this before when it's come up. I have a very weak stomach. I do not do well with, any like video movie stuff with blood, gore, medical. I can't watch it all, cover my eyes. Books, it has to be, and this I guess is kind of a compliment to the book. It has to be written very descriptively for me to get like that. And there were some scenes where they were like donating blood or giving birth that I had to set the book down because I thought I was going to pass out.
It's visceral.
And that is my personal thing. You know, I don't like that kind of stuff. But I think that is a strength of the author's writing ability. I had the same thing happen to me. Actually, the audiobook of The Woman by Kristen Hanna, which I did mention briefly last week, if anyone caught that. I had the same thing. Those like the war, surgery room, hospital room scenes, like same exact thing. And I'm like, that is really an attribute of the author and a strength of the author. Terrible news for me. Terrible news for me. Yeah. But so that's really the only negatives I have that stuck out to me from this book.
Mm-hmm. The book takes place, again, like I said, you're mostly in the room. It's Julia Power, it's Nurse Power, and there are the beds of 3 women. They're set apart in this separate room from the rest of maternity. It's women who are pregnant and who have the flu.
Yes.
So it's all of this extra risk involved. And the kind of element of the book that makes it different, you're thinking like, of all of the days that, you know, Nurse Power goes to work, why is it these 3 that Emma Donoghue focuses on? It's because of Bridie Sweeney. Mm-hmm. There are 2 other characters mentioned in the synopsis. And actually, I thought it was interesting how it was like, oh, it's these 3 women who come together, because one of them actually is in it much less. The doctor is not in it nearly as much. But Bridie, who is this kind of fish out of water and like a foil almost to Nurse Power, mm-hmm. comes in, and you might have thought reading the synopsis, you're like, okay, this is clearly historical fiction, but it's not, it doesn't sound like a queer book. They together are the queer element, but this book is not a relationship book for most of it. The central focus of this book is not a queer relationship or identity.
I will say
part of it.
I did actually read the synopsis before reading this book. Definitely thought she was going to get with the doctor.
No. The doctor is gay on her own time.
I know. She already came in a relationship.
Yep.
So,
which we'll talk about in the historical accuracy section.
Jumping back to the dialogue for a minute, because I started us there.
Okay.
Lack of quotation marks, yes. But the dialogue was so good. It's just like
really was
quick. It was like pretty much what they teach you in writing school of like, you only need what you need in dialogue. Mm-hmm. But so much was revealed like about, you know, their family circumstances, like Julia's mom being dead. You come to learn about Bridie's situation growing up like with the nuns through dialogue. And it's all just done very, very succinctly.
The way that Bridie and Julia come to know each other is so good to me, because they both come from these extremely different worlds, and they're shown to both be so caring in the same way and intelligent in separate ways.
Yes.
Because
it's kind of book smart versus street smart.
Yes, because Julia is the one that knows all of this medical stuff. You see her, you know, saving the life of one of the women who gives birth unexpectedly, or like thinks the doctor is coming in like prepared to like saw her bones in half. And Julia is the one who helps her deliver naturally. Mm-hmm. So she's able to heal better. Things like that. But Bridie is the one who recognizes that it's going to be hard for this woman to go home because her husband beats her.
Yeah.
And Julia had no idea, but Bridie picked up on it right away. And again, through the dialogue, where the woman doesn't say, you know, I can't go home because my husband is abusive to me. but it's these hints that you, the reader, maybe pick up, maybe don't. Maybe you see what Bridie sees, or maybe you miss what Julia misses.
Mm-hmm.
You see them like building this rapport together in this very natural way.
Yes.
And just to get into the characters a little bit more, because you already mentioned it.
Yeah, this is very character driven.
It's very character driven. Julia comes from, this upright background. She lives with her brother, who's a war veteran and who is clearly in shell shock. Came back
PTSD.
after the war with PTSD. He doesn't speak anymore. But Bridie comes from the system of mother and baby homes in Ireland. She was orphaned and she has lived with the nuns ever since. And she had this incredibly abusive upbringing, and she still works there, and the nuns keep all of her money because she's like, I owe them for raising me.
Yeah, it's actually really, and you might have this in some of your historical accuracy, just like thinking that this was what, like 100 years ago. I don't think people realize how much power the church had and like still has today. But up until very recently, they were like running society. They were like, if fathers were left widows, they would take their children away because they didn't think it was proper for children to be alone. And yet they had like basically set up like industrialized prayer centers where the kids were like forced to pray and like couldn't eat because they were working, and then like rented them out to get raped for the weekend to earn extra money. Like it was horrific.
And all of these things are touched on.
Yes.
In the book.
With Bridie specifically.
Yes. And it's heartbreaking because you see how she is still, even though all of these things have happened to her, such a good person.
Yeah.
And is there to help. And for the first time, when she is treated kindly and given positive feedback, how she can
She's
blossom.
thriving. She's thriving.
Like at one point, she breaks the thermometer, like one of the old-fashioned mercury thermometers. And Julia tells her, like, oh, I'm sorry. I should have told you not to put it in the boiling water. Like, I didn't realize, like, I know it, so I thought you should. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you. And that's total news to Bridie.
Yeah.
That, like, it wouldn't immediately be her fault. And it wouldn't double back against her to have done something as innocent as breaking a thermometer.
Yeah, I thought Bridie was a really special character.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she's very illustrative of, and I think we've seen this type of character in a couple other books we've read, but someone who's just so beaten down and in such a bad situation and just like, and I mean, she doesn't realize, so what winds up happening is that she does get the flu.
Oh my God.
But she is made to think by the nuns that she has had it before, which is why she's okay to help in this ward. She doesn't know by going into this ward that she is exposing herself to grave danger.
Yeah. And it's not even as literal as like the nuns told her that she's immune to the flu. She doesn't know about the different strains of flu. And so at the beginning of the book, when Julia says, oh, you should only work in the flu ward if you've had it before because you can't get it twice. Well, she's like, of course I've had the flu before.
And she's living with the nuns who are running the hospital, working in the hospital, who do know this information.
And the nuns have knowingly sent her to work in the flu ward because she's expendable, essentially. Yeah. It doesn't matter if she catches the flu and dies, which is what happens.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it's so sad. It made me cry both times at the end of this book when Bridie dies.
But yeah, Bridie's death had me fucked up.
It was so sad because then also Julia realizes, like, in the morning of her 12-hour shift that Bridie is sick. One of the mothers has just been discharged to go home. So Julia literally just puts her in the empty bed in the ward and takes care of her all day. And they describe how when you have the flu, your face gets flushed and red and it just gets darker and darker and darker until eventually you die.
Yeah.
And so you can see the progression of it. And then by the end of the day, Bridie dies. And it's so sad. But
it's so devastating because that was also, well, let's talk about the gay parts of the book.
Let's talk.
Because kind of every book we've read so far this season has had an element that has been very relationship centric. And I'm counting, why I had hesitation was the 30 Names of Night.
Yes.
But Layla and the grandmother. Well, kind of.
It's not even that a relationship necessarily was central to 30 Names of Night, even though
it was.
Layla had 2 queer relationships and Nodder had a queer relationship.
But I guess just the relationship with queerness.
Yeah, the transness of Nodder was, I would say, the central thing of that book.
Yeah.
And we talked about how many things there were in that book.
Yeah.
So, but the other three, certainly a relationship was the central fixation point.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, not a problem.
No, I was going to say we enjoyed those, but actually we did not really enjoy those books, which was not...
We could have.
Which was nothing to do with relationship being the central focus.
Yeah.
But this book, relationships and just queerness in general are not even close to the main focus.
Yeah. And you might think like, well, then does that make it a good candidate for the queer season? And we think yes.
I think absolutely, because there is inherent value, obviously, of books like The 30 Names of Night, of Gwen and Art, that have either, queer relationships or someone's relationship to queerness front and center, because people need that. People, especially...
It is so important.
Especially in YA, especially in books that appeal to young adults or, young professionals. It is so important. But at the same time, it's also important to show that queer people have more in their lives than being queer.
Yes.
Julia, her main focus is on the hospital and her patients. That doesn't stop her from being attracted to a woman and starting to explore that.
No.
But there is still more going on.
And you don't get the sense at the start of the book that Julia necessarily knows that she is attracted to women.
Yeah.
She has mentioned briefly, like, she turns 30 over the course of the novel. The second day is her 30th birthday. And she's like, I've never gotten married. And I guess I could have if I wanted to. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that it's not important.
She's very passive about it.
Yeah. She's like, I wonder why I never wanted a husband. It's not until later then, after day 1 and day 2 pass with Bridie. And they're not flirtatious during the day or anything like that.
No, they are working professionals.
But they're a team. They
Yes.
are a good team together.
And they're very friendly and kind to each other.
Yes, and they strike off that way immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into it for like plot reasons because it's really not important.
Yeah.
But they end up, after the shift on day 2, spending the night together on the roof of the hospital instead of going to their respective homes. Julia, where she lives with her brother, and Bridie, where she lives in the home with the nuns. And they, instead of sleeping, which is what they intend to do, they share a meal together, they stay awake the whole night, and they talk and they kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly not planned or something that either of them expects to happen. It just does happen.
Yes.
And you also don't really have any background on Bridie's identity. You don't know if she's done this before, if she's surprised, what she thinks about it. Like, we're not in her head, and so we don't know. We know that it makes her happy, but that's it.
Yeah. And it's actually devastating because at this point is when Bridie's telling Julia like all about how bad her upbringing has been. And Julia's kind of like, okay, come live with me and Tim, the brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so the sense that Bridie is going to do it. And then she dies the next day.
And then her life is ripped away from her.
Yes.
So then let's talk about 2 other things outside of that, like kind of dealing with the end of the book. I think it was implied that Julia's brother was also gay.
And I did not get the sense of that, but I can see how you did. And now I'm like, maybe I just didn't really read it clearly enough. Go ahead and explain the situation.
Okay. It was very minimal, like very, very brief. I don't even know if I picked up on it the first time I read it. But Tim is her brother, and Tim enlisted. Thank you. I was like, what word is it? Enlisted in the war because his best friend did. Mm-hmm. And then when they went off to fight together, the best friend was shot and killed right next to him. And then then Tim came back and he no longer speaks, even though he can, but psychologically he can't. And after Julia has her experience on the roof with Bridie, she wonders, like, Tim was always very close to his friend. Like, I wonder if he felt that way about him. And that's why it's been so difficult for him coming back. So that's a question, but we don't know.
Yeah, it is a question to explore.
So
it's interesting, but I think just going off on Tim for a little second, I think his character was like super impactful.
Yeah. And he's not seen much.
No, he's not on the page, but
He's on Julia's mind.
He's on Julia's mind, which makes him on the page.
Yes. No, he is very informative for her whole... He's a piece of her puzzle.
Yeah, because it's not just the war stuff, but it was also... She's the older sibling. Their mom died maybe in childbirth with Tim. I don't quite remember. But their mom died, yes, in childbirth with Tim when she was very young. So she's always taken on a motherly role.
Mm-hmm. And so even though she isn't a mother, her life revolves around motherhood in a lot of ways, working in the maternity ward and being so defensive of those mothers and all of this other stuff. We see her going to bat for all these people in her life. And at the beginning, she's also worn down. Like we talked about Bridie and all of the things she's gone through in her life. Julia is worn down by, if you knew of a healthcare worker during COVID, for those reasons, because her brother has come back from war and is having a hard time and is probably never going to be the self he was before again. And somehow still then Bridie and Julia are able to lift each other up for those few days.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the other thing that happens at the ending.
Yes.
So this book does have a body count. Over the course of the 3 days, there are 4 deaths.
Yes.
And 2 of them, or the very last one, is of a mother who came in from the mother and baby home from the nuns. And the baby is born, the mother passes away, and the baby has a cleft lip and is going to go, as Bridie called it, back into the pipe.
Yeah.
And Julia knows all the things that are going to happen to this baby because they happen to Bridie. And so Julia takes the baby home.
Yes. And Julia has to the nun is like, well, you need to get permission from the priest to do this. Which again reinforces how heavy-handed the church operated.
Both the nun and the priest are basically like, you don't want this baby. This baby is like gutter trash.
And they're also like, well, think about yourself. Like, what's the reputation you're going to have?
They're like, maybe you should tell people that this is a visiting nephew from the country.
And then at one point, I think it was a nun insinuates like, oh, well, people are going to think you and your brother had a baby together.
Yes. And that's, I think, after she says that, I think Julia just snatches the baby out of her arms and walks away.
But then they give the baby the most heinous name.
They name the baby Barnabas, which is you didn't have to do that.
No, that was a choice that could have been avoided.
Because at that point, it's Julia and the one mother who's left in the ward are trying to name the baby. And the other mother is like, oh, what about Michael? What about Jonathan? She's throwing out all these normal options. And it's just listen to her.
I know.
But no. But I do love that Julia takes home the baby because she's healing the part of herself that she gave to Bridie.
Yeah.
And she also, and again, this is maybe not everyone will interpret it this way because it is just an implication, but she's caring for this baby will help heal part of Tim also.
Mm-hmm.
She's given up on him being the same.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the book, she was clinging on to he just needs to heal and then he'll be himself again.
Yeah.
But she's he should be able, maybe we'll be able to speak.
Yes.
Again. Healing, caring for this baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even have she walks out of the hospital and she's like, I'm taking a week off. And they're like, you don't have a week off. There's a pandemic. And she's like, well, then you can't afford to fire me, can you?
Yeah.
I'll be back in a week. So it's a really powerful ending that comes right on the heels of this really sad event.
Before we get to historical accuracy, we haven't talked about the doctor at all.
I was just gonna say we need to bring up Dr. Kathleen Lynn.
Yes. So she was the rebel doctor. She had been fighting for Irish independence.
This book just taught me well, partially because of the flu, but even if there had been no flu, this is not a good time to live in Dublin.
No.
If I was to have to live in Dublin, I would rather do it today and not 100 years ago.
There were not many good times to live in Dublin except for today.
Great.
So
then I'll pick today.
Yeah.
Because the odds of you dying were really high.
Yeah.
Maybe you were going to get the flu and die. Maybe you were going to have a whole bunch of babies and die. Not a lot. One of the women in the book did. Maybe the rebel doctor would shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, maybe the cops would shoot you chasing after the rebel doctor. Lots of options.
Exactly. So she comes to the hospital to help out just because they're short-staffed. It by putting her in the synopsis makes her seem like she's going to be in it a lot more.
No, she's a side character.
She's a side character. She comes in, helps, and she's like kinder to the women than the male doctors. Julia like helps divert the police from getting to her, even though they're kind of on opposing political sides.
Yes, because Julia's brother obviously has just basically sacrificed his life, partially to support the King of England.
Yeah.
And Kathleen has been in jail for killing people to support a free Ireland.
Yes. And what's notable is that on her desk, Kathleen has a picture of her and another woman, and Julia's like, "Is that your sister?" And she's like, "No, that's my close friend."
Wink, wink.
Yeah. So she's kind of more of a side character, but I think important to touch on, and I imagine will be part of your historical accuracy anyway.
Yes. I will say that Kathleen Lynn is the only real person in the book.
Okay, so no disrespect to her per the spoilers.
So there you go.
All right. One last thing you have on your note list: hot lemonade. Ew.
Oh my gosh.
I would house a hot lemonade.
They kept making hot lemonade throughout the whole book to give to the pregnant women, and I'm just like, I can't imagine a hot lemonade.
I think it would probably be tasty.
It was also interesting because they also gave them whiskey
and chloroform
and like it's all the stuff that like we know now is medically incorrect. But it's, like, very interesting how, of course, like, Nurse Julia Power, who is being presented as very, like, capable and smart. And
she's like, sniff some chloroform. It'll make you feel better.
Yeah. And she, like, knows a lot of things that we agree with. Like, for example, she's like, I don't want the doctor to sew this woman's pubic bone in half.
Yeah.
However, they're totally on board with the chloroform.
Yes.
And the hot lemonade, which is disgusting.
Yeah, not a fan of that. That's all I got on this book. I really enjoyed it. It moved me emotionally.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't end with like the highest highs, but like the prose really was just so beautiful.
It was. It's just honestly that duration of it was just so good that like I don't know. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's dive into the historical accuracy section.
All right.
I put in my top bullet, I was like, I'm probably going to butcher all of the Irish pronunciations, so I should have let you do this part.
But that's actually so funny because I wouldn't have got it right either. I'm by far the worst of the two of us with pronunciation. So.
Okay, but specifically you have the leg up on the Irish stuff.
I suppose.
So mostly I am going to talk about Kathleen Lynn because she is, like I said, the only real life figure in the book.
And she gives context to everything else going on in the time period. So if you just root it in her, you're fine.
She's a great linchpin. Anyway, so she is from the country in Ireland. And really what makes her relevant to us starts in 1899, which is when she graduated from medical school. And she saw basically the same thing that Julia does in the book, the difficulties of women who have all of these children, especially in Ireland, where because of the influence of the church, they're having more than women in other countries to their own detriment, especially if they are suffering from poverty. So she becomes a doctor specializing in maternity and children and women's care. She worked in Dublin. And then a little bit later joined Sinn Féin. I looked up how to say it.
I don't remember. It's been a while.
I'm not going to look it up again.
You're fine.
She joined the Irish Citizens Army, the Irish Nationalist Movement. And she was a big part of the planning for the 1916 Easter Rising, which was an armed conflict. It lasted 6 days. In the lead up, she used her car to smuggle guns into Dublin. And during the conflict, she was the chief medical officer. So they took over a series of buildings in Dublin. She was stationed at City Hall tending to the wounded. And then when the British Army was able to beat back the rebels, she was arrested and sent to England. Mm-hmm. And I actually think she got, in the book, they said, she was not executed because she was a woman. I don't think necessarily that she was high up enough to be on the chopping block for execution.
Okay.
But it does seem like being a woman and being a doctor gave her some advantages, especially because then the flu pandemic came up and they needed her.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people who were arrested and sent to England were jailed in England, but she was put to work as a doctor in Bath.
Okay.
So basically they were like, you have to be here and you have to be a doctor, and that's that. And then a few years later, she went back to Dublin. So she would have been in Dublin in 1918, which is when the book takes place.
Okay.
She mentions in the book that she and her good friend, who is the real life figure Madeline French Mullen, For some reason, French is spelled with 2 Fs.
Oh, I thought you just had a typo.
Nope. I think that's because she's Belgian.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. Sorry. But Madeline French Mullen, who they were life partners, in a way that's so obvious that I think not even a lot of historians were like, they were good friends.
Yeah.
Like, they were a couple. And they lived together for 35 years. In the book, she briefly mentions wanting to start a hospital with Madeline, that Madeline is going to fund a children's hospital for the poor. And that hospital is St. Ultan's Children's Hospital, which she founded in 1919. So that was in Dublin, and it was for, impoverished children. It was open until 1984 when it was closed because it was folded into another larger hospital system.
Okay.
The building is now a hotel.
Oh, cool.
So you can still go and stay. It was...
Wait, I should have booked my hotel there. I didn't.
Next time. And then I think, though, prior to being the hospital, it was like a hunting lodge of some kind of lord.
Yeah.
So I think the hotel kind of leans into that.
Okay, gotcha.
It's more of a luxury vibe than the dying impoverished children, I have to say. But in the book, she mentions not going home for Christmas because her family doesn't welcome her because of her rebel status. That is true in real life.
Oh.
She had to stay in Dublin with her aunt for Christmas. In the book, they don't mention the aunt, so it seems sadder that she can't go home for Christmas. But then just a little bit about the flu, the Spanish flu, as they called it. 20,000 people in Ireland died of the Spanish flu, and 800,000 were infected. Oh. And this is like, in 2025, Ireland still has not replaced its population after the potato famine.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that the population was not that large in 1918.
Oh, yeah.
And so 800,000 people infected, that's a lot. It did kill more people than World War I and the Easter Rising. I think like 200 some people died in the Easter Rising. So that is like a lot. But, 20,200 magnitudes more. And I did find they talked a lot in the book about, because we're in the maternity ward, the flu you were more susceptible to it if you were pregnant or if you were a new baby. And there was a recent study being done as of, a few years ago, of people who were born during that time, and you are more likely to be shorter, which is not a big deal in, like, if that's it in isolation, but you are way more likely to have heart disease also.
Interesting.
If you were born and your mother had the flu.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So there is definitely truth to what Emma is saying, that it is very dangerous.
Interesting.
To be a pregnant woman in the flu time.
All right. Well, that was very enlightening. Thank you.
You're welcome. Should we get into our calculator?
Yeah. Do you want to share the categories?
No, because I don't remember them off the top of my head.
That's fine. I will share the categories then. So that is historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes.
I can go first.
Great.
I don't need to do any math because I'm giving it a 5s across the board.
All right. So that is a straight 5 for Grace.
Yep. And I gave it a 5 on Storygraph, and it is the first 5 of the season.
As I do my math, is there any, reasoning you want to get behind anything?
I love the structure of this book. I love the characters, even though it was tough to get through at parts. Like the vibe, I would not want to have been there, essentially. No. And there were parts, like you said, that made you like kind of queasy with how graphic they were. But I just thought all of the literary choices were so effective and so moving.
Yeah.
And I will say, I don't think I have ever disliked one of Emma Donoghue's books. There is certainly a range. Like, there are some that I think are better than others.
That's fair.
This is one of my top 3.
Okay, awesome. So there was a little bias in adding this.
Well,
I will say I almost gave it straight 5s. I was going to take a point off somewhere for it being gory and grossing me out. I was going to do vibes, but I wound up taking off prose instead.
Oh.
Because it was just like the descriptions that really did me in. So that's a 4.8. I still gave it a 5 on Storygraph. It's a 5. It's just, I feel remiss if I do not call that out.
Listen, we're not a lying podcast.
No, we're the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. And that means horribly gross scenes sometimes.
Yeah.
Sad for me. But I am really excited for next week's book.
So if this week was my book, I would say next week is your book.
Yes. So this was the book, which I think we talked about at some point, that we got when we were on our last New York trip. and I read it in like a single sitting on the train, and that is Daughters of the Deer by Danielle Daniel. And in the span of when we record this and when we record that, I will find out if Daniel is her actual last name and if her parents did name her Danielle Daniel or if she got married.
Okay. And we will have another surprise in store for next week.
A special surprised guest?
Perhaps. I think we've mentioned already who it is. So if you've listened to previous episodes, perhaps you can guess.
You can guess. And if you want to let us know your guess, feel free to comment on our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @fiverrflop_pod.
Or you can follow our Storygraph reading challenge to see what we're reading next week and what we're reading all the weeks after that.
Exactly. If you think we should be reading something better, fill out that recommendation form in our bio or email us at fiverrfloppodcast@gmail.com.
And in the meantime,
happy reading!
Bye!